So in this volume, we're going to talk about the printing in Krakow. Hebrew printing in Krakow began during the 1530s by Isaac Prosstitz. He began a long succession of Hebrew printing that was taken over by his son and his grandson. There were many great volumes printed in Krakow. Many of them copy the format and layout of editions printed at Venice. Venice was probably what was the epicenter of Hebrew printing at the time. And because Venice was so influential, the designers of the volumes at Venice have influenced people in other countries in far-off lands such as Poland. Now, before I talk about this volume, I just want to talk about Poland at that time. Poland, during the beginning of the 17th century, in Jewish life, was an epicenter and a very, very big mix of Jewish life. But Poland at that time was focused on many of the yeshivot, many of the study halls for studying the Talmud and rabbinical literature. And as far as many things are concerned, Poland was the world center for the yeshivot during that time, the beginning of the 17th century. And because of that, you see the vast amount of rabbinical literature coming out of the printing press in Poland for a century and a half, from the early 16th century into the 17th century. And that's where you have such a volume as this. Now, this is a volume the same as the previous volume, Shulḥan Arukh. This is the third volume, Even HaEzer, and this was printed in Krakow in 1620. In 1617, the first volume, Arukh was printed, and this volume was printed after that. It's coming off of a very similar volume that was printed in 1607. But what is remarkable about it, first of all, is that it has the glosses of Rabbi Moshe Isserles, the most famous rabbi in Poland at the time. And this printer was the grandson of Isaac Prosstitz, the first printer of Hebrew books in Krakow. And this printer's father had printed Rabbi Isserles' books. The memory of Rabbi Isserles was ingrained upon the memories of the printer and the typesetter and the editor of these volumes and all of the volumes, and without a doubt they remembered him. And to me, that was the first thing that was really, really remarkable when I bought this. The other thing that has to be mentioned is that not very long later, in the massacres of 1648 and 1649 in Poland, devastated Poland. There was carnage and killing and looting, and people lost their homes. It was terrible to be a Jew in Poland at that time. And because of the revolts of those times, almost everything in terms of the numbers of Hebrew books was destroyed and lost. And whatever survives to us from Poland from before that time is very, very valuable and very rare. And it's remarkable when things survive together, very remarkable. But even when things survive alone, such as this volume of one of 4 volumes of Shulḥan Arukh, it's still very remarkable. And that's really what motivated me to get this. Now you see in this volume, you see the layout that was not constructed at Venice. Again, the Shulḥan Arukh was printed at Venice, but not with Rabbi Isserles' comments. That was printed at Krakow. And so while the one at Venice has this sort of a pattern of line by line, letter by letter, which it's a canonical text. It has laws, and the laws are numbered. However, this style, together with the sources which are written in at the end of his lines, which was written in by somebody else, was created at Krakow, and it was created specifically for the integration of the glosses of Rabbi Moshe Isserles, the Ramah, into the Shulḥan Arukh. And so here you have the volume laid out as it had been laid out previously in the traditional format for Krakow by people who remembered him and people who knew him. Now, it has far less of straight lines and perfect editing and perfect printing style than that of the one done at Hanau. And it's clear that that is so because almost every page has some kind of printing mistake, ink blotch, or ink overrun, or something like that. But that probably had to do with the number of them being printed, which was far, far more than the numbers being printed at Hanau. It also has to do with the monetary constraints, probably, where they had less money and less machinery to work with at the time. Now, again, as you turn the pages, these pages were turned by travelers, people who were able to study legal texts as they traveled on the road, and all the many merchants in Poland who may have been dealing with banking or even gunpowder or anything else would have been able to read through these pages as they traveled from place to place, as they did during those times. Really, during the earlier years of the Polish-Lithuania Commonwealth and during all the times that Poland was united, the Jews were very active in buying and selling in merchandise, and you see it in the amount of the amount of places and signatures that are recorded all over the volumes from that time. You see how extensively the Jews traveled and how the extent of their experience over all those periods.